All right, everybody, welcome in to Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by good friends here at Mile High Sports and FanDuel. I am your host, Ryan Blackburn at NBA Blackburn on Twitter, part of the Mile High Sports Podcast Network, and I am here. I am ready to discuss the Denver Nuggets and an unfortunate loss last night. We're not going to spend a lot of time on that one because I do not think that it's going to do anybody a lot of favors. We'll talk about why it happened, what happened, and mostly keep it brief. But the vast majority of the show, I actually just want to pivot to the second half of the season. First and foremost, though, happy Martin Luther King Day to those that celebrate. Really appreciate those that are willing to say what is valuable. And this is all about who MLK was. And at a time like this where everything seems to be going crazy in our country and the world right now, a return to normalcy and celebrating somebody who said the right things and was about the right things is super, super valuable. So hopefully this is a time where you don't just take advantage of the Monday off and you can think about sort of where we are. So hopefully we can all come together in that regard. Okay, let's talk about the Nuggets. Let's talk about the Charlotte loss last night. I was at the arena and immediately saw that this was going to be a low energy game from the Nuggets. They were missing Aaron Gordon on top of missing Nikola Jokic, Jonas Valanciunas, Cam Johnson. Christian Brown is they're still trying to figure out what's going on with Christian Brown and put him into a place where he can continue to recover. So there's a lot of concerns. There's a lot of wonders about what's going to happen there. But to me, the most important factor was the center position. It was a weird rotation last night. I'm actually going to drop a couple of images onto the screen if I can. We're going to go to the screenshots that we have. That's not the one. This is the one. We'll start with this here. Yeah, okay. Jamin says, yeah, we miss Jokic more than once, Ryan. Freaking duh, obviously. This is that's the dumbest comment of all time because but this was the first time where they were just completely overwhelmed and they've lost, they're 7-4. They were 7-3 before this game, but this was the one where you really felt it from a size perspective and from just the overall skill set perspective. This was the rotation chart from last night, and it was a weird situation. I don't know why Zeke Naji didn't play as much as Deron Holmes in the first half. There were some things about the second quarter, at the beginning of the second quarter, where David Adelman and Charles Lee, who is the Charlotte coach, was trying to match subs and really do everything that they could to gain an advantage there. But really what was the difficulty was that no matter who the Nuggets put out there, it was just a lack of energy and the ability to fully box out and fully give everything that you need to in a situation like this, because the Nuggets have been so good at going above and beyond. They have been so good at going above and beyond and doing what it takes in order to win, because it takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of energy to get over the fact that you do not have the size out there that just makes up for a lot of misgivings. And so Denver's done a great job of scrambling throughout this stretch. They've done a great job of boxing out as a team. Last night, they didn't box out as a team. It wasn't just Deron Holmes, although Deron, I think, is he looks really overwhelmed out there from a rebounding perspective. He grabbed one defensive rebound in 26 minutes. And it's not acceptable. The Nuggets as a team grabbed 21 defensive rebounds in the entire game, and Charlotte grabbed 16 offensive rebounds. So the second chance points were a massive factor. And it was when Charlotte, they weren't shooting they shot really well at the beginning of the game. They started 5 of 7, but what happened, actually, okay, Is Shams currently tweeting about all-star starters? The East all-star starters are out. Why don't okay, weird. Somebody keep me appraised of when Nikola Jokic and when he becomes an all-star starter for the Nuggets. But yeah, like Charlotte started the game 5 of 7 from 3, I believe. But the center position, as you can see, was a very weird situation. At the beginning of the second quarter, Nuggets were trying to figure out what to do. Ultimately, they played Deron Holmes for a minute and then put in Spencer Jones for 5 minutes, and they played small, and then they put back in Zeke Naji. Like, the long and short of it is that Denver is really struggling now to put back the pieces from a center spot. It's why Aaron Gordon was starting at center. Zeke Naji had a good run for a couple of weeks. The last few games that he has played have looked a lot like the Zeke Naji of old. He has not been confident. He's airballed multiple threes. He is not grabbing enough rebounds himself. Although, like, he was one of the, like, he grabbed 5, he grabbed 2 offensive rebounds and 3 defensive rebounds in his 23 minutes. And it's actually funny. He was a +9 in this game. Zeke Naji was in a game that the Nuggets lost by 23. So kind of weird that he's not starting right now, given the way that things began when he was out there. I'm surprised that this is happening, but Deron is getting a lot of run, and hopefully he continues to learn from this process. But my impression of this is that once Jokic does return, once Valanciunas does return, I don't expect to see Deron again for the year. I don't really expect to see Zeke for much of the year. There's a possibility that the trade deadline and the situation with Spencer Jones impacts that, but I don't think that Denver's going back to this style of play unless it is Aaron Gordon or Spencer Jones playing small at the 5. That would be my impression. I could be wrong about that, but like, it's, and TJ says it here, Deron just overmatched at the 5. And when you see him standing next to Ryan Kalkbrenner, now, like, Ryan Kalkbrenner is a pretty big-bodied center. There's not always guys like that you have to contend with. And when Denver has more athletes and more guys that can play hard on the defensive end than they did last night, they can collapse and they can scramble a little bit more. They can all battle for rebounds, and it looks a little bit better. But it was just shaky for sure. And so I'm still high on what Deron can provide in the long term. But at this point in the season and with the Nuggets where they are going to be in a really tough spot. So we'll see what happens, but I'm very curious to see how it goes. Okay. Yeah, it will be very, very interesting. Sorry, trying to follow along on this this all-star listings now, if this is going to be a thing. Okay. Whenever you go on to X now, the following is different. Okay, here we go. Eastern Conference starters there. They haven't announced the West by the looks of it. Okay. Yeah, and like, look, Denver could have scored and kept pace with Charlotte, but they didn't. Jamal Murray was the only guy who really looked like himself from a scoring perspective. Jalen Pickett did some good things, and he was in there for garbage time a fair amount of the time, so he set up the table for a lot of different guys. He was only -8 in his 34 minutes, whereas Peyton Watson -29 in his 29 minutes, Jamal Murray -22 in his 25 minutes. But this game, it became very clear. Actually, by the way, Peyton Watson hit the ground pretty hard on several occasions and looked like he hurt his knee in the first quarter of the game, played through it and was fine ultimately. It looked like he was hobbled, but still continued to play and played 29 minutes on it. And then he also fell down and hurt his shooting elbow. So that's a guy that has been giving a lot to what the Nuggets have done over the course of these past few weeks. And so he deserves a break at some point too. Tim Hardaway Jr. didn't even play in the second half. The Nuggets decided to shut it down for him from a minutes perspective. He played 13 minutes. Bruce Brown played 18. Yeah, it's just like Denver had to have some guys out there because they only had 10 active players. But ultimately, it did feel like Denver just needed to get past this game. It was mostly a throw in the towel game by the middle of the third quarter. Denver was down 25 at half. It was a game that you didn't need to have out there. So, yeah, Denver lost the rebounding battle 52-29 in this one. And over the course of the last week, over the course of the last week, I actually put this in my story that you can find on milehighsports.com. Denver is the last ranked team in rebounding rate over the last week by far. Like, they've only rebounded 42.3% of all misses. It's the last, and they're last in offensive rebounding during that stretch. They are third to last in defensive rebounding. It has been very tough ever since, frankly, ever since Joker went down on December 29th. The Nuggets are last in rebounding rate. This would be different if they had Valanciunas. This would be different if they had Aaron Gordon. Aaron Gordon, he can do some of it, but asking him to do this as a full-on rebounder is ridiculous. Like, it's not fair to him. It's not fair to the Nuggets too, because Aaron Gordon is a 6'8" power forward. He's not a center. Sometimes the Nuggets will need to play small and they'll need to scramble and they'll need to switch, but ultimately, it's going to be tough. So, different moves in the comments says the Hornets blew out healthy OKC. OKC's talented, man. I said this on Saturday that, before the Washington Charlotte back-to-back, that the Hornets, when they do win games, they win them by the highest net rating in the entire NBA, even over OKC. It's actually been very impressive that when they get going, they have a different gear. And you could tell from minute one of this game that they were feeling themselves. They were feeling confident. Brandon Miller was holding up that follow through for a long time. LaMelo Ball playing some flashy ball, and Knipple was very impressive in this game. He didn't it feels like he doesn't take a lot of shots for a reason. Like, he's also trying to share the floor with some other guys. Miller took 15 shots. LaMelo took 11. But I'm really impressed with Knipple. He's actually who I would probably vote for Rookie of the Year, but his odds are nowhere near Cooper Flagg's right now. So it's interesting to see. But I mean, Knipple's contributing to them winning. So it's been impressive to watch. But yeah, I mean, this Nuggets team, they definitely missed reinforcements in the front court. They have only had Aaron Gordon for a large chunk of these games, but Zeke Naji, Deron Holmes playing Spencer Jones at the 5. Peyton Watson's been playing a lot more 4, especially when there's guys that are missing. And it just feels to me like Denver is finally starting to show those cracks. This is in order to play this kind of game, you have to have energy. You have to have the willingness to go above and beyond from an energy perspective. And they just didn't have it. And that's fine. I understand why they have gone above and beyond during this stretch. They deserve at least one little reprieve. The crowd was annoyed about the offensive rebounding that the Hornets were doing. But in terms of the actual result, the crowd last night was not annoyed at all. They're a little bit disappointed in it, but I think everybody kind of understands that when you're on the second night of a back-to-back, you're watching it with your own eyes and you see that these guys are just overwhelmed and undermanned. So it's not a surprise to me. Now, you look over at the bench and you see a whole bunch of guys in street clothes. Aaron Gordon looking dapper as always. Nikola Jokic looking dapper as always. Jonas Valanciunas, amazing beard. I never let this thing grow because it gets too bothersome for me to maintain. But Jonas Valanciunas' beard is just, it's on another level. It's the best beard in the NBA. And then you have Christian Brown and Cam Johnson also in street clothes as well. These guys are, there's just a lot of talent that the Nuggets are missing right now, and a lot of reinforcements and a lot of potentially a lot of guys that can take some of the burden off of who's currently playing. So I'm not surprised, obviously, that this happened. Not probably. Gordon will probably play on Tuesday. I don't think they're going to get back any reinforcements other than him. Christian, I don't even know what to do with the Christian Brown situation right now. It's just I'm going to assume that he's out until he has full practices, and we're probably not going to know he has full practices until uh, they actually practice again. And so we'll see whether they can get a little bit of a break in their schedule. Um, Looking at it now, they do not have multiple days off until early February. So we'll see. I mean, behind the scenes, he'll be doing some work, and he's obviously going to try his best to be able to get back out there because he doesn't want to miss time any more than anybody else does. So we will see what happens. Apparently, the West starters are out now. Let's take a look. Luka Doncic, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Steph Curry, Nikola Jokic, and Victor Wembanyama. No third front court players. Interesting. They decided, hey, screw that. We are going to vote for the three guards that deserve it. So congrats to those guys. Congrats to Jokic. I know that he was on another level until he got hurt. So hopefully he is back and is willing to play in that situation. So we're going to see what happens there. But congrats, obviously, to Nikola. That means actually, like, this is a good outcome for the Nuggets fans that want to see Jamal Murray make it, because he will be able to fill an extra backcourt slot because they decided to put three guards into the starting lineup. So good for them. Good for everybody. I believe Jamal Murray's well on his way to making his all-star game, and Denver should have some good representation there. They'll have Michael Porter Jr. there, probably on the eastern side, in order to, and the pictures that those guys show where they're standing in the red Western Conference uniforms and the blue Eastern Conference uniforms will be sick. So I hope that they could pose for a picture at some point. Okay. When are we going to see Jokic, JV, Gordon returning? Like, Gordon will be back, and he's going to be somebody that they have to provide maintenance for, obviously. I'm going to go ahead and predict. I'm still going to predict that Jokic is not back for another week. This marks 3 weeks that he's been out. There's a lot of people that have been thinking about when Denver, like, could Jokic return early? Like, is because he's probably somebody that's going to try to return early. I think it's going to be right at 4 weeks. I think when Denver plays Detroit in that January 27th game, that'll be right at 4 weeks. I think that they'll feel pretty good about, as long as Joker's moving reasonably well and there's no pain that he's feeling. Like, I think he'll be just fine. It's a lot of it is pain tolerance. So hopefully he is all good. He'll wear a compression sleeve, of course, on that right knee, or left knee, excuse me. That'll also give him time on this homestand that's coming up for, like, Detroit on the 27th, Brooklyn on the 29th, Clippers on the 30th, and then they play OKC for the first time in the final game of that homestand on February 1st. So coming back on the 27th, or I guess Brooklyn on the 29th, gives him enough time to at least get adjusted to playing live reps again before OKC is playing. So will be interesting to see when he does come back. Cam Johnson is at the 4-week threshold of a 6-week timetable, I'm pretty sure. He is getting reps on the court, so I wouldn't expect him for at least another week as well. Maybe they try to pair it so that Jokic and Cam are coming back. With JV, he was doing some good work, like in the post against Deron Holmes in a practice on Friday. He's battling. He's trying to come back. I would expect that they try to take a little bit longer with him, though, because a calf strain is no joke. But if he's feeling good, if he's feeling ready, then Denver could obviously use the reinforcements. So we will see. As for Christian Brown, again, I'm not going to put a timetable on that. Like, I don't know. I'm not close enough to the situation, and it's very ambiguous right now with when he came back versus when he is now missing more games. I believe that the first one that he missed was Milwaukee, I want to say. So he has missed now the last 5 games for the Nuggets. And so trying to get back, trying to reset himself. Maybe they're going to say, hey, take a couple weeks. We'll see what happens when we go on the road. Denver plays the Lakers tomorrow, and then they go on the road for a 3-game trip to Washington, Milwaukee, and Memphis. So Maybe at some point he returns during that, but it's hard to speculate. So in conclusion there, Jokic and Cam likely in a week or more. Jonas Valanciunas maybe slightly longer, I would guess. And then Christian, we will see. So just keep that in mind for all those guys. Different Moves asks, Spencer Jones contract, what's the deadline for that? He has 8 games left of eligibility on his 2-way contract. So we talked about it last night, Vinny Benedetto and I of the Denver Gazette. Make sure to go follow Vinny. He is fantastic at what he does. So 8 games puts the Nuggets at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's the OKC game. So that's February 1st. So maybe Spencer Jones plays that one, and then trade deadline comes up pretty soon after that. I think it's the Thursday, February 5th, I want to say. I could be wrong about that, but will somebody check on that for me when the trade deadline actually is. It's right around there where they're going to figure some stuff out. Guys are in town. A lot of the Denver Nuggets front office personnel is back in town for meetings before the trade deadline right now. So they're going to try to come up with a plan. I don't expect it to be a significant one. I think it's more a financially saving one, but they have to balance this where they don't kind of hurt the back end of their roster by saving so much money that, like, yes, they'll convert Spencer Jones and turn him to a full-time contract at some point, but you can't, like, it would be nice to also get some reinforcements. So we'll see what happens. I don't expect anything major, but things might get a little bit weird on the back end of the roster, I'll say. Okay, let's take a break. When we come back, we are going to do a lot of good numbers. I've got a lot of fun numbers here for the second half of the Nuggets season. We're going to talk about that next here on Pickaxe and Roll. This podcast is brought to you by Delete Me. Delete Me makes it easy, quick, and safe to remove your personal data online at a time when surveillance and data breaches are common enough to make everyone feel vulnerable. Data brokers, they profit off of your data. It's a commodity. Anyone on the web can buy your private details. This can lead to identity theft, phishing attempts, and harassment. Have you ever been the victim of identity theft, harassment, doxing? If you haven't, you probably know someone who has. Delete Me can help. Take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me. Now at a special discount for our listeners. Get 20% off your Delete Me plan when you go to deleteme.com/hit and use promo code HIT at checkout. The only way to get 20% off is to go to joindeleteme.com/HIT and enter code HIT at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/HIT, code HIT. All right, we are back. Pickaxe and Roll, Ryan Blackburn here. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Folks, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Would really, really appreciate it. Always value the feedback. So if you want to see the show continue to evolve, continue to get better, then let me know where I can be better. I would always love for that. I do my best to cater to the audience as much as possible, but I do think that this is going to be an interesting time for Nuggets coverage, as we're going from a whole bunch of road games and a very weird situation to it's about to get serious with this schedule. Like I'm very curious to see how this evolves, but let me know how my coverage can continue to get better and what you guys would love to see. I'm also doing these shorts, these the late night Nuggets, so make sure to go check that out on it's either here or Instagram or TikTok or wherever you like the content. Okay. The Nuggets right now are, as I look at the numbers, I pulled a whole bunch of good numbers here for the schedule. Through 43 games, the Nuggets have a 29-14 record. They are tied for the third most wins in the NBA. They have stayed above water with Jokic being out. Obviously, still voted for a Western Conference All-Star starter. So his season was fantastic up until that point, but Jamal Murray and others have absolutely stepped up. Peyton Watson has stepped up in that time just to make sure Aaron Gordon's been really good. Tim Hardaway Jr. has been fantastic. Like the Nuggets have had so much help from everybody else in this time, but they've been able to do it for the most part against sub 500 teams. And that's the part that I think people are not fully acknowledging here. Denver's had a pretty easy schedule. So it's funny. They have had a really difficult schedule from a travel perspective. They've had to take a flight before 35 of their 43 games that they've played so far. That is ridiculous. That is too many flights. And I pointed this out at the beginning when I was talking about it back in August when the schedule came out. This was a ridiculous schedule that the Nuggets were getting at the beginning. They've had to travel so much. They've played 24 road games, 19 home games. That differential is whatever, but it's the fact that the Nuggets have pinballed back and forth between home and away as often as they had. The 7-game road trip was good for them because at least they got 7 road games out of the way. Saptosh asks, any update on when Jokic will return? I talked about this in the last segment, so make sure to scroll back at about the 20-minute mark or so. You'll be able to check that out. But Denver's done a really good job. They're 18-7 versus the Western Conference. They're only 4-1 inside their division. They've played Minnesota 3 times. They've played Portland once. They played Utah once. They have not played OKC at all. They will play OKC 4 times going forward. They've played the fewest division games in the NBA, which is notable because their division is really good. Portland is a try-hard team that Denver has struggled with and will have to get to the point where they continue to do that. But hopefully they can play Utah as many times as possible during this stretch. I think, they play Utah 3 times in the coming weeks. Denver's 13-7 versus plus 500 teams. That is the second fewest games versus plus 500 teams in the entire NBA. But only OKC and Detroit have a better record. Detroit, by the way, 30-10. Like, I know it's one of those things where nobody wants to really credit Detroit, and I understand why, because I don't think anybody wants to credit any East team right now. And if Detroit's boning up on East teams, but they're also just playing really good basketball. So they might just be the team that's going to represent the East, hidden in plain sight. Denver is 13-7, as I mentioned, versus plus 500 teams. They're 16-7 versus sub 500 teams. So they've actually lost a fair amount of games to those teams that you would not hope for them to lose to. But the losses were to Portland, who's right at 500, who's right at 22-22, I believe. Chicago, Brooklyn, Atlanta, Dallas twice, and then Sacramento. Those are the 7 games that they've lost to those teams. It's not like there aren't bad losses, I don't think, for the most part. Some of them you would like to have back, but especially because Denver's done so well in the plus 500 mark, I'm not super frustrated if I'm a Nuggets fan about the way that they've handled the 500 or below teams. Denver is 6th in net rating during this stretch. They are 1st in offensive rating. Still, somehow, they scored barely enough points to qualify for a game last night, but they're down to 121.7 offensive rating on the season. Boston is at 121.6. So Denver's about to lose that threshold to Boston. It was 123.9 before the Joker injury. It had started to come down a little bit because that number was in a crazy place before that, but Denver was starting to really show some cracks without Christian Brown and Aaron Gordon for a while. And then Joker went down and Cam Johnson went down and Jonas Valanciunas went down. So not a surprise. What is interesting, Denver's still 23rd in defensive rating. This thing has been trending down for a while. Now they were 116.7 defensive rating before Joker went down, and they're now at 116.8. So they've been able to hold it together with scotch tape over the course of this time. They've played a different style of defense, but clearly they're overwhelmed. And I know Jokic is not a great defender, but a lot of the things that you would expect to end a defensive possession with the defensive rebounding, maybe he gets some steals every now and then, that definitely helps defensively. So it's they're definitely overwhelmed. Okay. Remaining strength of schedule. Denver has the highest remaining opponent strength of schedule by far in the NBA. If you're just looking at record, if you're just looking at opponents, and opponent quality, that is what it is. Like it's a very tough thing to think about if you're a Nuggets fan, but this is what it's looking like on Tankathon. That's not what I wanted. There we go. This is on Tankathon. 55.6% strength of schedule. They've got, of course, 39 games left, 4 games against OKC, 3 games against San Antonio, and another game apiece against Boston, Minnesota, Houston. This also doesn't account for, they've got a few games versus the Lakers. They've got 3 games versus the Lakers. They've got 3 games versus the Spurs. That's already on there. So it's going to be this is going to be a tough schedule. In the easiest opponent category, Denver's got 3 games against Memphis, who've already gone through pretty tough places and are trying to come back and get out of the rut that they have been in from a health standpoint and from an energy standpoint. So Memphis is not going to be easy. I know that people think it will be, but there's a lot of games there that Denver could absolutely drop, could absolutely lose. So not a lot of games versus the dregs of the NBA anymore. And it's going to be interesting to track no matter what. So it's going to be tough. This is going to be a lot of tough games. And the most important thing, Denver, I think, only has 6 games out of 39 against teams that are realistically tanking. You know that Utah's going to be tanking. They're going to be trying to get a top seed. They're still talented enough that they could win those games, but they're going to try to sit Larry Markkinen. They're going to try to sit Yusuf Nurkic. They're going to try to sit their vets and any of the guys that are really helping them. Dallas will be making a run for a top seed. They are not playing their top guys anymore. Maybe Memphis, we could possibly discuss Memphis in April, but the games before that I don't think are if they go well, then Memphis might be fighting for a play-in spot. So that is debatable. And then maybe Portland on March 22nd or April 6th, but Portland's freaking 500. They're 22-22 right now. So only way I think that realistically changes is if Portland or Memphis really falls off, and then one of those guys will be in the play-in. But yeah, I don't expect Denver to have a lot of opportunities where they're boning up against teams that are already losing and their rosters are bereft of talent after the trade deadline. These are the games you love to see on the schedule, because those teams, they don't have any soul anymore at that point. They're playing for the love of the game, but a lot of these guys are in really difficult situations. So it's not a lot of breaks. Not a lot of breaks. And I do think that most of these other teams, they'll be playing for something. Now, Denver's better, especially when they're healthy, but Denver's going to have a lot of things that they got to figure out. So going to be very interesting to see. 22 home games remaining, 17 road games remaining. The one thing, and we talked about this, obviously, Denver's travel schedule before was ridiculous. They had 35 of their first 43 games that they were playing after a flight. Now it's 26 out of 39. So 13 games where they are just going to be at home. They're going to be resting versus 8 in the first 43 games. I know that doesn't sound like a lot. It is a lot. And the reason why is because they're actually kind of doing things correctly. They're having trips. They're having homestands. They've got in this stretch, they've got a 3-game road trip, 4-game homestand, 3-game road trip, 2-game homestand, 3-game road trip, 2-game homestand. Then at the end, they've got a 2-game road trip, but then 10 of their final 13 games are at home in the form of a 3-game homestand, and then you play Phoenix, which is not a bad flight. Then another 3-game homestand, you come right back, and then you fly to Utah, not a bad flight. And then you play a 4-game homestand, and then you fly to San Antonio. Not that bad of a flight. Not that bad. Denver's in an interesting... Sorry, just realized the overlay was off. Denver's in a decent place from a travel standpoint in this final stretch. And the hope is that if they have reinforcements, if Joker's going to play basically every game down the stretch, which I think is going to try to be eligible for MVP. He's already missed 11 games. He can only miss another 6 before disqualifying himself for MVP candidacy. So I think he's going to try to come back in about 4 games, give himself a couple games of margin. And then if he plays really well and the Nuggets, let's say they challenge OKC for the top of the West. I don't think it's going to happen, but who knows? If you're in that situation, then like Denver could absolutely do that if you win 3 out of 4 games against OKC and you're really playing well in a lot of these stretches and Jokic is playing well. Wouldn't surprise me if Denver really pushes hard during this stretch and has a lot of great stuff, but they're going to have to play consistent basketball. They're going to have to play healthy basketball as much as possible and then really try to recover from this. Hopefully, like Tim Hardaway is going to have a slump at some point. Jamal Murray's going to have a slump at some point. Peyton Watson's going to have a slump at some point. The hope is that when Jokic, Christian Brown, Cam Johnson, Jonas Valanciunas, when those guys are back on the floor, they can say, "Hey guys, it's okay. We'll help out." Like that's the hope. So whether it does happen or not remains to be seen. But I do think the Nuggets are in a good place from a travel standpoint for the final 39 games of the season. I will go ahead and make a prediction. The Nuggets are currently, as I mentioned, 29-14. I'm going to guess that they go 25-14, 26-13 in the final 39 games. So they're 29-14 now. I predict that they win 55 games for this regular season. I had thought that they could challenge for 60. Obviously, that was before Nikola Jokic would be out for a month. So it's understandable that they are not going to ultimately get to 60 wins. Can they get to 40 before 20? They have to go and get 11 wins before they pick up a 6th loss. This next stretch of like from up until game 60, like that's going to be the time where you really want to see it. Can they do it? Like they've got some road trips still. Jokic should be back at some point, but like a lot of these teams are playing, like they've got some pretty tough games coming up in February, especially before the All-Star break. So like, here's how they, like January 30th, they play the Clippers. Then February 1st, they play the Thunder. Then they go on a road trip against the Pistons, Knicks, and Bulls. Then they come back home and play the Cavs and the Grizzlies. Then they go on the road again and play the Clippers, Blazers on a back-to-back, and the Warriors. So like these are tough games. Denver's going to have to bring it. And if they want to get to 40 wins before 20 losses, then yeah, I mean, they're going to have to really kick into action and can't really let off the gas that much. So it's going to be interesting to see whether they can do that. But I mean, we know that they're talented enough from a playoff perspective. I know I mentioned that they were 23rd in defensive rating. I'm not as worried about that. I know there's a lot of fans, and especially opposing fans, they like to mention Denver's defense sucks. They're trash. Denver's been holding on by the skin of their teeth over the course of the last month and really the last 2 months. And they haven't had a time where they've been able to be fully healthy and really fill in these roles and do the things that they were trying to do at the beginning of the season when they were 2nd in defensive rating. Now, do I think that they're the 2nd best defensive team? No, of course not. But are they like 10th when fully healthy? 12th? Yeah. So like they were a historic offense and a borderline top 10 defense is kind of how I would describe them when they're at full capacity. So will they be able to do that going forward? I don't know. I hope so. I hope that Denver can figure that out, but I think Denver's in a really good stretch. I think that they'll win about 55 games on the season. Is that going to make them a top 3 seed? I don't know. Where's San Antonio on the remaining strength of schedule index? They're 12th, but they have to face the Nuggets 3 times. So yeah, it's going to be tough. Like Denver's got, like San Antonio's got 13 losses. Denver's got 14. Timberwolves have 16. Houston has 15. Lakers have 16. Phoenix has 17. So everybody's within about 4 games of each other from 2 to 7. So Denver's going to have to take advantage of those opportunities. And it's going to be very interesting to see what they're doing. So we will see what happens. But for now, that is going to do it, I think, for this episode of Pickaxe and Roll. Brought to you by good friends here at Mile High Sports. And actually, no, I still got to do the FanDuel stuff. A couple of days ago, I don't know if I think I mentioned this. I don't think I mentioned this on show. I mentioned this on Locked On. I bet on Anthony Edwards to score 50 points. He did. I got a massive bonus bet for that. And I'm trying to figure out what to do with it. So should I be doing it on the college football championship game tonight? Who knows? But maybe I'll throw it all on Nuggets to win the title and then try to go make some crazy money there. But FanDuel does a lot of great offerings. The last one that they did for the 50-point challenge, I was able to hit. Whether it's actually going to happen going forward remains to be seen, but they'll still do the 50-point challenge. So take a good look at it on FanDuel. There's a lot of interesting offerings, and especially for the NBA happy hour that they are doing on Fridays from 6 to 7:30 Eastern. Okay, now that is going to do it for this episode of Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good friends at Mile High Sports and FanDuel. Thank you so much for tuning into the show, folks. Really appreciate the love and support on the podcast as always. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button on the way out. I'll talk to you guys very soon.